Hello everyone, Alan Sens here, and welcome to this segment on radiation and the human body. In this segment, we're going to look at how radiation actually has a biological effect on the human body. So let's get started. Here are the learning objectives for this segment. When we're done, you should be familiar with ionizing radiation, and you should be able to describe how ionizing radiation harms humans. As you know, radiation exposure can damage living cells, killing some and modifying others. The vector for this effect is ionizing radiation and the impact that ionizing radiation can have on cells. This chart shows the electromagnetic spectrum, and it shows the range of different forms of radiation in that spectrum. So on one end of the spectrum, we can see the lower frequency radio waves, in this case here. So this is the radio part of the spectrum. Here's the visible light portion of the spectrum. When we talk about ionizing radiation, we are talking about this part of the spectrum right here. These are high energy waves that are able to penetrate cells and cause ionization in different parts of the cell. Now, there are a number of forms of ionizing radiation, and here they are: alpha particles, beta particles, gamma rays, X-rays, cosmic rays, and neutrons. We are mostly interested in gamma rays, X-rays, and neutrons. The others do matter, but for us, in the study of nuclear weapons, these are the main three that we want to look at. Okay, so ionization. What is ionization? Well, ionization is the development of a negative or positive charge in an atom or a molecule that is normally neutral, that is to say, without a charge. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw an atom here, and I'm going to draw a nucleus, and my nucleus is going to have 4 neutrons in it, and it's going to have 4 protons in it. I'm not really worried about what this actually is in terms of being an element. I'm just going to focus on the principle for now. And then orbiting my nucleus, I'm going to draw 4 electrons. Okay? And these electrons then each have an orbit. Around my nucleus. There we go. Okay, so here's my nucleus, and I've got an equal number of electrons and an equal number of protons. Now, ionizing radiation, when it comes from the outside and strikes this atom, it will kick one of these electrons out of its orbit. And when it does that, the number of electrons in the atom no longer equal the number of protons. And that will mean that the atom will take on a positive or a negative charge. And it will be called, as a result, the atom will be called an ion. That's a little bit of a sidebar for us today. But it's in this way, then, that ionization transfers energy from outside the human body or outside an organism to matter, to the matter of the organism itself, including to the human body. The key to understanding the link between ionizing radiation and the effect on the human body is that ionized molecules are unstable. They quickly undergo chemical changes. And it's these chemical changes that can damage molecules directly or can lead to the formation of highly chemically reactive atoms or molecules, sometimes called free radicals, that can damage other molecules, break chemical bonds with other molecules, or produce new and undesirable chemical bonds between molecules. In this way, molecular damage can cause cell damage, and cell damage, of course, can cause tissue damage. Okay, so an example. One type of molecule that is very sensitive to ionizing radiation is DNA, the part of the cell that contains every living organism's genome. And here I've got a basic schematic of DNA. Let's not worry about this right now. We don't need to worry about that either. Let's just stick to the basics. So I've got my base pairs here, and two base pairs of nucleotides, right? T always with A, C always with G. And so radiation, ionizing radiation, when it strikes DNA, can have one of two impacts. The first impact is the energy comes and may strike the DNA molecule, and these molecules inside the DNA molecule may become ionized as a result. That makes them more chemically reactive. The bonds between them may break down or be altered or changed, and as a result, this part of the DNA gets damaged. And that, in turn, can lead to breaks in the DNA strand. The second way ionizing radiation can have an impact on DNA is by ionizing water molecules within the DNA structure. So we have a little water molecule right here, and you can see there's one oxygen, there it is, and there's two little hydrogens, one there and one right there. Right? So here's our water molecule, and ionizing radiation can strike that water molecule and ionize it, and in so doing then this becomes very reactive and can damage this part of the DNA structure, and can lead to breaks in the DNA structure in various parts of the DNA wherever these water molecules are being ionized. This damage then can lead to mutation or change in a cell's DNA, which can contribute to cancer or to the death of the cell. So just to summarize, DNA, as an example, is very sensitive to ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation can lead to mutation in cell DNA, which can kill the cell, and of course the death of a sufficient number of cells will seriously damage an organ, which may cause death. If mutated cells survive and are not repaired, the resulting mutations will be passed on to further cells through DNA replication, and this, of course, may eventually lead to cancer. Now, what's amazing about all of this, and quite frightening, is the process of cellular change from ionizing radiation may only take fractions of a second. But the changes that occurred may only lead to cancer years down the road. Now, it's also the case that exposure to nuclear explosion-related radiation can also come from contact with residual radiation from nuclear fallout. And that exposure can come through the consumption of contaminated vegetation, animal products, and water. So we've mostly talked about exposure to ionizing radiation through that radiation striking an organism, striking the body. But this same effect, the damage of ionizing radiation, can also come through the ingestion of contaminated food or water. Okay, so now I hope you're familiar with ionizing radiation and that you are able to describe how ionizing radiation harms human beings and, in fact, all living things. The process is the same. Okay, so what we've looked at here is simply process. What we haven't done is looked at doses. how much radiation, ionizing radiation, will cause how much of an impact on the human body. We haven't talked about measures, we haven't talked about dosages. That's something we're going to do in class. But with this video, we've looked at the process by which ionizing radiation, this form of energy, how that gets transmitted or transferred or translated into biophysical and chemical impacts on the human body and on living things. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll see you again soon.